Issue of anti-Semitism and the additional measures that could be taken to address the valid fears that are being expressed by Canada's Jewish community, that the study include but not be limited to the issue of anti-Semitism on university campuses, that the study should be at least 3 meetings, and that the committee report its findings to the House. Madam Chair, just briefly, because I've had a chance on Monday to deliver a speech in the House that dealt very much with this issue, the Jewish community in Canada is feeling frightened to a level that I have never seen. While anecdotally people are taking off mezuzahs from doors and afraid to send their kids to schools, the vast majority of Jewish Canadians are affected in a broader way, because those are anecdotal small incidents. I don't think that's happening really that much. But what is happening is people expressing their fears to me, wondering if they're safe in this country, wondering if they have a future in this country, which I never in my life believed would happen in Canada. And I don't see that, frankly, when I'm in the United States, anywhere near as much. So something is happening here. Anti-Semitism is happening around the world, but the perception of the community in Canada is drastically different than what I find south of the border. And so I really think the committee needs to look into what is happening, what can we do. And I'm going to talk about 2 issues very briefly, Madam Chair, that I think are the most poignant, most important. One of them is the demonstrations that are happening and the lack of policing related to those demonstrations. The idea that people are blocking buildings and shouting things that are deemed to be hateful and intimidating people from entering or leaving a building, and that the police are not moving people back so that there's a safe line to allow a differentiation between the building and the people that are trying to enter and leave and the protesters is one thing. The second thing is, why are Jewish buildings a target in Canada, and how it's making people feel. And I think I would like the opportunity to hear from Jewish Canadians and Jewish organizations about how they feel and what they think we could do as federal legislators to better protect them from a public safety aspect, from a justice aspect, etc. The second issue is what's happening on campus. The biggest place where you find people feeling scared and intimidated is on campuses, and this is happening from Newfoundland to British Columbia. It's happening in my province of Quebec. It's happening in Ontario. It's happening everywhere. And we had written a letter in December, me and some other colleagues, to the deans, the presidents of the biggest universities in Canada. We have received responses from all of them, Madam Chair, that we can table. And I think we need to hear from Universities Canada, from the presidents of universities, what they're doing to protect Jewish students, and we need to hear from Jewish students as to what they're experiencing on campus. So again, that we can opine on what solutions we might be able to recommend to the universities and to the minister and the human, to take. So that being said, I think, Madam Chair, the most important thing is symbolically, the Jewish community has failed to see leadership at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels from literally everyone. And I think if they saw our committee was interested in this issue, that there was a forum for them, and that we were taking their concerns seriously and listening to them, it would be a morale boost because they would think that at least someone cares and there's a hope. So I'm hoping, Madam Chair, that my colleagues would agree to do this study. And of course, I'm happy to listen to amendments and yield the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. Mr. Mendicino.
Madam Chair, thank you. I obviously wholeheartedly support my colleague, Mr. Housefather's motion. And while he is true in all aspects of his remarks, I would add one important caveat, and that there has been a tremendous demonstration of leadership on the part of Anthony Housefather on behalf of his community in the face of some of the most vile hate that I have ever seen, certainly in my lifetime, in a way that I hope that his community will take some hope and inspiration from. I would just add that in Toronto, in my hometown, that the police chief there, Chief Demkew, just reported 48 hours ago that Toronto has seen a 93% increase in the number of reported hate crimes since October 7th, 2023. And that compounds the ongoing rising tide of anti-Semitism, which I think as parliamentarians, regardless of partisan stripe, have an obligation to deal head on with. I would also say that the anecdotes that Mr. Housefather referred to are the same stories that I hear from the community that I represent in Eglinton Lawrence. The fear, the profound sense of anxiety, and most of all, Madam Chair, the deep sense of abandonment that the Jewish community is feeling, not only in Canada, but around the world in the face of this hate, should be a red flag and should sound the alarm for all of us. And look, there are many things that we need to do in order to push back against this. But I think that having a study that examines carefully some of the issues that Mr. Housefather has already highlighted is one way in which I believe this committee can contribute. And if we don't take this opportunity, I think it will just see us take more steps backwards as a democracy. So I certainly hope that all members of this committee will see the value in putting some energy into this report so that we can come together to stem this trend and to reverse it and to continue to see Jewish Canadians and all Canadians live in a society that is free from hate. Thank you.
Ms. Gladue, are you? Yes. Ms. Gladue, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I also am extremely concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism in the country. We just had the Justice Minister here telling us that we already have, hate laws, hate speech laws, but people are calling death to Jews across the country, and not a single charge has been filed. And I'm quite alarmed when I see the protests and the violence and the targeting of Jewish businesses, that the reaction from the police is not the same as it is. We've just seen Fisher's protest going on, and the police are there, making sure that the protest remains peaceful, bringing in their horses. But here in Ottawa, when we're having pro-Palestinian demonstrations and they're calling out things that are anti-Semitic and they're kicking in cars and breaking off mirrors, the police are standing by and doing nothing. So what is the point of having federal law if you don't have the enforcement of law? So I think, this has come to a crisis point, and I'm very supportive to do a study to figure out what exactly can we do to use the existing laws and enforce those, and what else can we add to that? Because Jews don't feel safe in the country. I'm alarmed at the demise of what was Canada, a free nation where people could feel safe and worship. I think people don't feel safe, and we need to address it.
Merci, Madame Gladue. Mr. Van Popta.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Mr. Housefather for his courage in standing up for the Jewish community and putting forward this motion. I think it's a very important study, and I support that we undertake that study. In my home province of British Columbia, my University of British Columbia, there was a referendum or a threat of a referendum recently to terminate the lease that Hillel House has had on campus for many years. It's a very significant presence in the university, and it was a haven for the Jewish student body there. Now, thankfully, the referendum didn't go ahead with the good leadership of the Students' Association, but just the fact that the referendum was even suggested, I think has been very, very disturbing for not only people in my home province of British Columbia, but throughout the country. The motion also would have included a BDS sanctions, boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel and anything to do with Israel. And that's just the newest form of anti-Semitism. And I just find that all very disturbing. So I'm very supportive of having this study to better understand what is going on here in Canada with anti-Semitism, is something I never thought I would see in my lifetime, and also to demonstrate to the Jewish community that we stand with them and that they are an important part of Canadian culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Popta. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to say that, I've read, we've had this motion before us for quite some time, and I think it hits to something that should be of concern for all Canadians and all parliamentarians. And, I'll just speak briefly on, as Mr. Housefather was mentioning, the lawlessness around some of these protests and the fear that that's instilling in many Canadians. So I can't imagine the fear that it would instill in people in Canada's Jewish community. Every Canadian, every person should feel safe in Canada, and there's no place in Canada for anti-Semitism or anywhere in the world. So I think this motion is one that is timely and important, and one that I certainly support Mr. Housefather's motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Monsieur Fortin?
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je vais commencer.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking Mr. Housefather for tabling this motion. I believe that it expresses a concern that we all share in Quebec and Canada. I think that every citizen and all of our citizens should be able to live peacefully with their religious beliefs in peace and freedom, whether we're talking about religious beliefs or moral beliefs, whether the apostolic or else. I don't think religion should be dividing people. On the contrary, whatever the religion is, it should be a series of values that bring people in society together rather than dividing them. I have great respect and friendship and sympathy for what members of the Jewish community are currently experiencing. To this end, in Quebec, as you know, I don't want to change the debate. We have the secularism legislation. I have many Jewish friends and some Muslims who say there are extremists in all religions, but with 99% of people agree that the state should be secular and that everybody should be able to live their religion in respect, peace, and solidarity. So I'm not adding anything to the debate, but I agree with what Mr. Housefather said and what Mr. Mendicino said. I think these are important issues, and you can count on the support of the Bloc Québécois in these matters. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Fortin. Mr. Garrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I, too, would like to commend Mr. Housefather for his tireless work against anti-Semitism and bringing the attention of this committee and all of Parliament to the rise of anti-Semitism. I have seen the evidence of this in my own